President-elect Donald Trump has promised to make the armed forces less woke, as the term goes, by eliminating diversity training and firing any generals that he believes are supporters of a woke military. Now, as commander-in-chief, he already has the power to fire any general he pleases. So which are the woke generals? A draft executive order reportedly shows how he might identify those generals. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's transition team is considering the creation of a, quote, warrior board made up of retired senior military personnel to remove generals and admirals found to be, quote, lacking in requisite leadership qualities. Which qualities are those? Well, the draft ordered, which was reviewed by the Journal, does not lay out the criteria for meeting or failing to meet those qualities. And a transition team spokesperson declined to comment on it. But this outside board would clearly bypass the Pentagon's regular system, signaling, as the Journal puts it, that Trump intends to, quote, purge a number of generals and admirals, woke or otherwise. In his first term, Trump celebrated what he called my generals, but the tone soon changed with many of them. You'll recall General Mark Milley, the former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has called Trump, quote, the most dangerous person in the country and a fascist. General Jim Mattis, Trump's former Secretary of Defense, said he tries to divide us and called on Americans to reject those in office who would make a mockery of our Constitution. And General John Kelly, Trump's longest-serving White House Chief of Staff, said Trump acted surprised that the military's leadership was loyal to the Constitution and not loyal to Donald Trump personally. One fear now is that this warrior board, if created, could shift that loyalty. Another is that trust in the military, our most trusted institution, itself could suffer.
Hello there, villagers. Welcome back to another video here in Stacy's Random POV. If it's your first time here, hello and welcome. It is so good to have you here. I hope you decide to stay. I release about 3 or 4 videos every week about thought-provoking situations that will absolutely, I feel like, will help you in these tumultuous times. Now, guys, we definitely have to talk about this. So if you guys were not aware, President-elect, apparently Donald Trump, has, as of now, starting to make his executive order for 2025. And one of those executive orders that he's doing is, if you pay attention on the screen, I made it upon myself to do my research about this, and this is what I found. So if you just want to pause to read, that's completely fine. So what exactly is going on? Right now, like every other president-elect, Donald Trump is doing his executive orders, meaning the job that he wants to take care of on his first year as president. So those are considered very much urgent. As we already know, he is right now currently working on his cabinet members, and a lot of people have so much to say about it. And the weirdest part is that they are not going through FBI background check, but this is not that video. What we are discussing right now is one of his executive orders, which a lot of people are considering to be a purge. Many people believe that there is a obsession, that Donald Trump has an obsession with Hitler, which I hope not, but I cannot confirm or deny this information since I don't know this man. However, we are living in tumultuous times and we do not know what people have in their hearts or in their mind. Now, what will this presidential election bring us? We will have to wait and see. Will this be our last presidential election? We will have to wait and see. Now, you guys already know how I love to do things here in this channel. I brought you guys other reactions from amazing creators whom I think their opinion is super important. You don't have to agree to disagree, but we can all be respectful. And I'm still working on the John Smythe video part 2, so please don't forget to subscribe. Once you subscribe, you automatically become a member of this village. You love this village, you appreciate this village. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Remember when I posted this? Leaders at the Pentagon are trying to figure out what they'll do if he tries to deploy troops to American cities. Yeah, well, now it seems like the Pentagon might not have so much of a say in the situation because Trump wants to draft an executive order that would create a board to purge generals. The panel would upend military review process and, of course, raises concerns about politicizing the military. So while Trump can fire any officer at will, an outside board whose members he appoints would bypass the Pentagon's regular promotion system, signaling across the military that he intends to purge a number of generals and admirals. So the board would send their recommendation.
Hi, I'm Amira Martin. I am a wife, a mom of 3, and I'm also a war veteran. I was in the military for 18 years. This is bad. this is bad. Oh, I also had a very high security clearance. I was a munition specialist. This is bad. That's all I'm going to say about that. Y'all be careful out there. Okay, bye.
For sake. On July 30th, 1934, Adolf Hitler, yeah, that guy, removed from service hundreds of generals, admirals, colonels, and upper echelon military from their service in the military. He purged them. This is a quaint way of saying he had them murdered and or disappeared, or both. This was known as the Night of the Long Knives. And the reason he did this is because he realized that they were the only people that could stop him. Guess what, kiddies? You're about to get a first-hand look of history repeating itself, known as the American Night of the Long Knives. And you're going to say to me, he's not going to murder anybody. You're right. He may not murder anybody, but he is going to remove them from stopping him from stopping him. Don't say you weren't warned. When this happens, don't say, that's what? You were warned.
Folks, we're in for a bumpy ride. Remember all those times we said that the guardrails that restrained Trump's most dangerous impulses in his first administration won't exist this time? It's happening. Here is the worst example yet. Trump has proposed a board, a commission, to identify and remove any senior military officers, think generals and admirals, who are deemed disloyal. That's disloyal to him, not the Constitution. And just a reminder for those who need it, the oath of office for those in uniform is not to the president or to any individual, but to the Constitution. So think about all those times during the last Trump presidency when the only thing standing between him and the military shooting protesters was a general who stood his ground. We won't have those generals this time. For generations, we've had a military that remained nonpartisan because its leaders and the rank and file understood that their oaths to the Constitution came first. Trump will do everything he can to change that, so the American military is loyal only to him. Get ready. This is going to be rough.
Some really amazing new reporting in the Wall Street Journal that we just got. I'm going to share it with all of you for your reaction. Wall Street Journal just dropped a story under this headline, quote, Trump draft executive order would create board to purge generals. The panel could upend the military review process and raise concerns about the politicization of the military. Quote, the Trump transition team is considering a draft executive order that establishes a warrior board of retired senior military personnel with the power to review 3- and 4-star officers and to recommend removals of any deemed unfit for leadership. If Trump approves the order, it could fast-track the removal of generals and admirals found to be lacking in requisite leadership qualities, according to a draft of the order reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. But it could also create a chilling effect on top military officers, given the president-elect's past vow to fire woke generals, referring to officers seen as promoting diversity in the ranks at the expense of military readiness. I don't know if Paul Rieckhoff had a window into this or was just prescient, but he warned of a purge yesterday. That is literally the headline in the Wall Street Journal today. Sarah Matthews, this feels like something I know you've talked about being sent out.
Yeah, I do think this is an issue that has long perplexed him. We know that from John Kelly in his interview that he did with the New York Times, that John Kelly said that Trump wanted generals like Hitler's. He wants people who will carry out every wish and demand of his and receive zero pushback. And so hearing about this potential draft executive order is obviously alarming and concerning. This is something that I was raising the alarm about, of how he would reshape our government and reshape it and to fit him and his vision. And so I do think that if they decide to follow through on this, then that kind of shows what type of leader that he wants to be. He is going to politicize the military. And I don't think it just extends to, quote, woke generals and those that were pushing for diversity measures in the military. I think it's going to be, they would want to eliminate any of the generals who aren't in line with Trump's vision and maybe push back on some of his worst instincts.
Wall Street Journal reporting this, quote, as Commander-in-Chief, Trump can fire any officer at will, but an outside board whose members he appoints would bypass the Pentagon's regular promotion system, signaling across the military that he intends to purge a number of generals and admirals. The draft order says it aims to establish a review that focuses, quote, on leadership capability, strategic readiness, and commitment to military excellence. The draft doesn't specify what officers need to do or present to show if they meet those standards, but the draft order originated with one of several outside policy groups collaborating with the transition team.
I'll tell you what they need to do. They're all going to need to bend the knee. What they're going to need to do. Yesterday, it was, hey, we got to get rid of advisory consent in the Senate, you know, because Trump just has to have his way. we have to get these appointees got to go through fast. If I want recess appointments, you'll give me recess appointments. That's what I'm going to do. They have talked in a lot of detail about how they want to kind of strip the Justice Department down to the studs. We're sitting around Christopher Wray sitting there thinking about whether he's going to be forcibly removed. Now we're talking about the military, right? We have three branches of government: the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive. And so when people talk about what would happen if a budding authoritarian got into the presidency, what would they start to do? What do they do in other countries when strongmen get in? One of the things they do is they seek to either formally or informally minimize the legislature and kind of become, that's one of the things, so the Duma becomes a rubber stamp for Putin. These other areas that aren't really, the civil service is neither really, it's the executive branch kind of in charge of it, but it's kind of independent. Civil service, GS employees, they operate, they stay on regardless of who's in the, not political appointees. The military is like that too. Again, the commander-in-chief controls the military, but those people who are in the military, those four-star generals are nonpartisan. They serve whoever the president is. When you start, the FBI is like that. The DOJ, in a large extent, is like that also. There are political appointees on top of it, but it's staffed by people who are committed to the law. When you start to reshape those institutions, those are the moves of a classic dictator, a classic authoritarian. And we're not a week into this transition yet. And you're already seeing the early signs. We'll see whether these things all come to pass. Maybe this executive order will go away. Again, I don't want to be either too credulous or too alarmist. But these are the signs of what would happen if you were like, I'm going to start to become exert authoritarianism, extend the power of the executive broadly across government and deeper into the parts of it that are not have not traditionally been under political control.
I totally agree. When Trump was in office, the economy was better. I mean, everything was cheaper. What Trump supporters are failing to realize is that's not because of Trump, that's because of Obama. President's tax plan doesn't even start until the next president is in office. So basically, what I'm saying is Biden's tax plan hasn't started. What you've been experiencing for the past 4 years is Trump. When Trump was in office, the economy was great because Obama did that. This is why we need better education. And Trump literally said he's going to get rid of the Board of Education if he's president. If you're voting for Trump, if you think he's a great guy, if you think he's a great president, you probably didn't get good Board of Education. Interestingly enough, it's always the same people that are like, oh, kids these days are so soft. Oh, blah, blah, blah. You have to remember, people that are like 50 right now, their school system was insane. My mother has a friend. When she was in middle school, they had a paddle. This is in Kentucky, by the way. This is probably 1980, maybe 85. She got in trouble and a teacher spanked her with a paddle so hard. She broke her tailbone in her pelvis and she can't have children. She's never been able to have children. She'll never be able to have children. That people thought that school system was great because it was so much better than it was in the past, right? Because you think something's acceptable now doesn't mean it can't be better. Just because it's better than what you had doesn't mean it's okay.
If you have caught yourself saying in recent days, oh, there's no way he could deport 23 or whatever million people because that's way too hard, logistically it's too difficult, it's too much money lost out of the economy, this, that, the other, I would like you just to watch this video. You have 1 minute and 45 seconds until it's done. I would like to propose that perhaps the raids that you're imagining happening would not be the primary method through which they would get people to leave or take people out of the country. It would actually be for terror. Because one of the things that the Nazis did during the Holocaust was, yes, they had raids on people's homes, absolutely. And they had ghettos where tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people lived, and they did liquidate them. But they also had the administrative state. If you've ever read the Diary of Anne Frank, you would know that actually the exact way that Anne Frank and her family knew it was time to go into hiding was that Margot Frank, her sister, had received a letter from the German government, or the German occupying government in the Netherlands, that told her that it was her turn to go work in the East, which was just code for, it's your time to die. Similarly, if enough raids happen and enough people get hurt or even killed in those raids, God forbid, immigrant communities and people who are associated with immigrant communities will become fearful enough that if they start getting letters that say, hey, listen, like, come out with your hands up effectively, like just go to this one airport, this one bus station, people will go. I know you don't think they will. They will. People will go because they want to avoid violence and they want to avoid being literally ripped from their homes. People want to have what they will view as a peaceful, more dignified send-off than literally being dragged out by ICE agents. You know, all it takes is just the letters being sent to your house with an official ICE stamp on it. And if you're an immigrant who's here on a visa, or you know, God forbid in this horrible scenario, if you're deemed an enemy of the state and you have a sneaking suspicion you would be if you're a labor organizer, a Palestinian organizer, or whatnot, and the government says, come to this bus station, you're now a criminal, people will go. Promise you. Plenty of people will walk into the cuffs. And that is how I believe that that number can be achieved, is through terror and submission.